All right, welcome back to the Grace Family Love Podcast. We are Joe and Vanessa back with you again for episode number 31. Yay. Thank you all for just your faithfulness. Thank you for just joining the GFL fam and giving us your encouragement. We've got a lot of feedback, particularly today. We got some feedback, so that was really nice. That was great.
So today, actually, the topic, one, I combed my hair. You can't see on the other side if you're just listening, so I wish you would have tuned in because I actually combed my hair today. I was feeling a lot better today, so I thank God because, again, remember we were just talking about my surgery was supposed to be tomorrow. So today I had one of the most normal days I've had in a long time. So it just goes to show that God's always moving in everything, and I'm so grateful. So because of that, we spent some time praying today together as a family, and that's the reason why we have this topic today. So we were praying, and Aiden comes into the room, and if you haven't been following us on Story and you don't know who Aiden is, he is kind of like our middle child. He is 14. I always get confused because he's so mature. No, he's 13. He just turned 13. So we have 4 kids. There's Lily. She's the youngest. She's 8. There's Aiden. He's 14. 13. We got 13. We got 8. Brandon, which he's 16. And then we have Gavin. He's 20. He's 20. Yep. Oh, my God. Okay. So he comes into the room and he's just like, hey, what are you guys doing? We're like, oh, we're just praying, and he's like, well, can I join you guys? And we're just like, yeah, sure, come on in, So we started talking, and it just filled my heart with peace. And a lot of people tell me, like, how did you do that? Like, how do you get your kid to want to pray? How do you get your kid to do a devotional in the morning? Like, how do you do that? So the thing is that we don't do that. Like, we didn't do that. All we did was just allow God to come into our life. And by God transforming our life, it kind of just trickles down because it's a part of your life. It's kind of like if you eat, like if you're vegan and, you eat just fruits and vegetables at home, your kids they're a part of that. Yeah. So one of the things that sparked me is this verse right here. And I wanted to share it with you guys because this is where we want to talk about, the topic. So it's in Proverbs 29:15, and it says, so mind you, people hear this verse and they're like, oh my God, how could you? But just bear with me, okay? It says, the rod and rebuke give wisdom, but a child left to himself brings shame to his mother. When the wicked are multiplied, transgressions increases, but the righteous will see their fall. Correct your son, and he will give you the rest. Yes, he will give delight to your soul. So today we were talking with Aiden, and we one of the questions that we asked was just like, hey, how are you doing? And he's just like, I'm good. One of the things that I kind of worry about is just influence, being influenced, and that's one of the things that we don't talk to our kids about. We kind of just allow them to be who they are, kind of throw their earphones on and kind of just be themselves. We don't really necessarily are always like, what are you listening to? What are you hearing there? What's on the other side? Who are you talking to on the other side of that internet? Like, we kind of just let them be. Yeah. But if you see here, already God's already telling you, okay? But a child left to himself brings shame to his mother. So why is this? A lot of the times parents say, and they tell their kids like, what were you thinking when you did this? And if you talk to any kid, any boy, or any girl, especially boys, their common sense does not come in till about their age of, 20, 25?
I don't know. I can't really answer that because it's
He's
a
like,
choice.
Mine's not there yet.
It's a choice. I'm telling you.
It is a choice.
Doesn't necessarily come with age.
It is a choice. But that's why you fall back on habits and what your parents teach you when, the choices. But other than that, if you don't have that, then common sense is not there, and it's a big, big trouble. It is. It's huge trouble. And, when Joe was explaining to Aiden, like, man, when I was younger, pornography wasn't a big thing like the way it is now. Like, it's everywhere.
Yeah, it was a big thing, but the access to it, it wasn't like it is now.
Like, what? Like, you're going to go buy magazines, but here it's like, no, you have it on your Instagram. You have it on your social media. You have it slipping through your DMs. Girls just posting and sharing and sending you private message where nobody knows. You know, if you have dirty magazines, your mom cleans your room. We're like, what are these things doing here? I'm gonna throw them out. You know, but it's like now it's everywhere.
Yep.
So I want to ask you a question. Like for you, what was one of the hardest things that maybe parents kind of like, and I want to ask for the boys part, because for me it's different. It was boys, but it was more like, oh, I want to be married, I want to have kids, I want to hold hands. Yeah. But for you guys, it's like totally different. So if you can just explain, because sometimes we forget as adults, from what age do you feel like the sexual part was like opened, and then when do you feel like you started to like, okay, I'm gonna just, you know, influenced, and then, you know, you brought shame. I'm just kidding.
Wow. So that's me in a nutshell, everybody. Thank you for tuning in.
No, I just say that because he talks about it so bluntly. That's why
I think I understand what you're saying. I'll do my best to answer. So you have to take into consideration too that in my particular circumstance, I was exposed at a very young age. So I would say about 5, somewhere around 5, and so that.
Can you just explain to them, because they're probably like, what the heck, 5 years old? Like, what is it that you were, how are you exposed? So
exposed to pornography, meaning that was the age that I remember seeing an actual video, like a pornographic film, you know, not like a movie with a scene in it, like, no, like an actual film. You know, I didn't sit there and watch the whole thing. And looking back, I didn't really understand what it was. I remember seeing it, and it's crazy because I could remember exactly what I saw even now.
That's crazy. You're 5.
So the door opened at a very young age. Now, why that's important to note is because that was an exposure. So over time, you become desensitized.
Yeah.
And so that was the beginning of that process. Later on in life, growing up, I was, you know, I had family members that were sexually active at a very young age. So you're talking like 12, 13, maybe even younger, you know, so having those conversations or being amongst them while they were having those conversations is another exposure. And it's another process of desensitization. And so then you move forward and you get into school, and then people are talking about it at school, and it's, you know, the thing to talk about. And the further you got, you know, then the more popular you were or whatever, or people perceived you as greater if you were that guy that had a girl or you'd had sex with a girl before or whatever. So all of that also added to the pressure. So the pressure not only was there, and it didn't make me feel awkward, like, oh man, if they're doing it, I want to do it. No, it just was like, oh, well, that makes sense, part of it, because I've been exposed to that already. Like, that's a normal thing. Now, growing up, having to go through some of the situations that I was in, that further, you know, made that exposure even more ingrained in who I was. And so there was, you know, situations where I was, you know, also molested and that kind of stuff. So that just, you know, we're just talking about the floodgates are wide open.
Yeah.
And now moving forward, for me, it was not a matter of people are influencing me to do something that I don't want to do. It was now as if it was a part of my life, and that's just the thing to do. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how it played out for me. And I try not to push that on my kids, but I also am not afraid to talk about where I came from.
Yeah.
So that way they can understand where I came from, what they have now, where they are now, and perhaps in me sharing where I've been, they can understand, okay, well, one, my dad really understands. 2, it opens the line of communication so that there's no stigma of embarrassment or shame or guilt in having the conversation.
And it's crazy because there still is. Like, that's how, like even though you share it, like I feel like
it is for them.
Yeah, for
not
them.
Not for me.
Yeah.
Right? So sometimes parents don't share because they think they're going to shield their kids from it. Parents don't share because they think like, oh, I'm not going to be the one to expose my kids.
Yeah.
But the problem with that is they already are being exposed. And if they could at least have an outlet that they can see in their parents, that it's a safe place, a safe discussion, a safe person to talk to without being judged or shamed. Like we need to have that relationship with our kids. So even though there might be shame on their part, because kids naturally, just like adults, but more so in kids, you do something wrong, your instinct is to hide it because you don't want to look bad. You don't want to get in trouble. And that's always going to be there. So us being forceful in our communication, being careful with the word forceful, right?
Yeah.
I'm the one engaging in the conversation. I'm the one pushing to make sure that there's a talk that's happening. And if I don't do that, I don't expect my kids to do that. I didn't do that when I was a kid. I didn't tell anybody about the stuff that I was going through when I was growing up until I was an adult. And so if that happened to me, I know that my kids probably inherited that part of me. So if I don't actively engage in the conversation, I know it's not going to happen. On the other side of that, what I'm hoping for is for them to know, like I told Aiden today, like there's nothing that you can tell me that you thought of, that you're thinking of, that you're tempted by, or that you've done that's going to make me go like, ugh, there's just nothing. Like, trust me, you don't know what I've been through in detail. You weren't there. So I'm not going to love you any different. I'm not going to be disgusted by your temptations. I'm not going to be surprised by the things that you've done in your 13 years of life, like, and if I were to compare myself to him and the way that we've been brought up, he's sheltered, and not just because, but I'm different, you're different. The way that we've raised them is different from our upbringing.
It is.
And then now with COVID and everything, that they just can't go play together. So I want to touch on something before I forget about the verse that you read and something that you mentioned about online. And this is something that, thank God, I know I bring them up all the time, but my pastor recently brought up to me and said, hey, just keep an eye on this, And usually when he says that or does that to me,
it's because the antennas are up.
Yeah, it means that you need to just keep an eye on it. And one of the things that I believe that it's easy for us to overlook as parents is now that our children are able to connect online with other people, I think that, and I hope that we're all aware that there are predators out there trying to just build relationships with children. There are some sick people out there. The other thing is that sometimes when we invite kids to our house, or when kids get together and play, we have the ability as parents to put our eyes on these kids, and especially like a mother's instinct, like, nope, don't like that one. You're not hanging around with that kid anymore. But why? Just because, like, I don't like what's going on. I don't like what I see, period, bottom line, it's over. Okay. So we have that ability when we were gathering in groups.
Yeah.
When you're online, you can't see anybody.
Yeah, you don't have control.
You don't have control. If they have a headset on, you can't hear what's going on. And that's a big problem. So we have to be really diligent and just keep our senses just heightened about protecting our children from certain things, having those discussions, talking about what's appropriate online and what's not, talking about what kind of relationships are appropriate and what's not. So I talked to my son today about not playing with kids, that are over 18. And that might sound extreme, but if I wouldn't let my kid go hang out on the corner with an 18-year-old, like, why should I do that online? Why would I do that? And I'm not talking about like family members and stuff. And I don't know, it's your family. You know them better than me. Maybe it's not a good idea. But what I'm saying is that we need to still create healthy boundaries.
Yeah.
Without boundaries, kids are going to be left to themselves. And like it says here, a child left to himself brings shame to his mother. What does that mean? It just simply means doing things that are against the character that you would want for your children to build and to have. We don't want our children doing certain things. We can talk about it all day long, but if we're not reinforcing that with love and correction, there's no chance that we are going to influence them in a way that builds the character that we hope that they would have.
Yeah, and it's a healthy balance, guys. Like, it really is. Like, so when you rebuke somebody, you correct things that are not appropriate, that are not okay. But you have to kind of do it on the spot, and you have to be constant. You know, you can say like, but I already told him like 10 times. Guess what? You have to tell them every single day if you have to remind them whatever it is that you want to remind them. You know, now that we're talking about, we're talking about pornography for boys, but for girls, like I want you to understand that at the age, think about the first time that you had your first crush, for boys or girls, what age were you? If you think about it, I bet you know the name. I bet you know the color of the kid's hair. I bet you know if they had freckles or not. I bet you probably even remember what they smell like. Like, I'm not even joking, because at that age, things are starting to happen. Things are starting to move inside your body, age, boys and girls. And one of the sad parts about it, I used to teach workshops for schools. And I would have a lot of parent conversations, and a lot of the parent conversations, the moms are like, oh no, my daughter's never going to date till she's 18. Okay, one, she's going to date regardless whether you say yes or not. She is. So the point is, when she does date, like, how is she going to act? How is she going to respect herself? How is she going to know of her value, and why is it special to respect herself? Yeah. Like, it's funny, but my kids sometimes have girls and I'm having these conversations with them, and explaining them how valuable their body is. Even with my own son, I know that's probably just like, Mom, oh my God, embarrassing. But I tell him this, like, look, babe, okay, one day you're going to get married, right? And you're going to fall in love, and you're going to have the love of your life. Like, what is the best gift that you can present to your loved one is you, your purity, your body, everything who you are. Not touched, not, tainted. Just give it to them willingly. And when you have a choice, because most of us, for us girls, nobody told me this. Nobody told me that I didn't have to give up my body. Nobody told me like that I had value, and that someday I would want to give something special to my loved one. Nobody told me this stuff. And I wish they could have described to me like what would have been like, not that you're just going to have a relationship and it's not even going to feel like nothing. And then, hey, you might get pregnant, like nobody explained none of these things to me, so here I am, like sex was forbidden in my house. Like, it was taboo. You couldn't talk about it. So these are the conversations that we need to have with our kids to be able to say, yes, this is good. No, this is not good. Why not? Why should you wait? Why, to kind of not only guard your heart, but I mean, we tell kids like, guard your heart. It's like, guard your body, guard your body, especially for boys, guard your heart, guard your eyes, like guard all of that. Because if they're constantly watching pornography, guess what? By the time they get married, regular sex is going to seem like, what the heck is this? This is boring. Like, this isn't nothing. I want it like that. Like, I thought it was going to be like that. And they're going to have that expectation. And it happens to married couples. It happens, like, and I know because, like when, I've talked to Joe a lot about just like the whole pornography thing. And because, I mean, again, I grew up and I never watched it. I never knew anything about it. So everything I learned, I learned through him just talking and asking him questions.
Maybe we should put like a little, some little text at the bottom that there's more to me than just that. No, I'm just kidding. And part of the reason why we have talked about it so much, and I really don't want it to seem like that's just the old me, that's all that I was. But it was such a deep issue for me that it actually, for lack of a better word, no pun intended, perverted the way that I process regular information. And what happened is now everything that had to do with women, I objectified. And it became very difficult to have respect, like a healthy respect. It became very difficult to take her opinion as something that was valuable. Yeah. And it was very difficult to actually have a healthy relationship because of that. And the consequences of,
I think that's what I wanted to go to.
Yeah. The consequences of that are not just related to the act of watching pornography or something like that. It has greater and deeper consequences than I think that people actually realize.
Yeah.
And now what's happening is that I don't know what it's like on her end, but because of me trying to overcome that issue, and I've done much better in my life, and now that I feel like I have a good handle on it, I think now, looking back, I don't know what those conversations either must have done to her. But for me, I needed to have some level of accountability and confession in order for there to be a true healing in my life, to move forward and say, this is who I am. This is who I was. This is what my struggle is. Can you love me like this? Can you love me in this state? Do you still care about me the same? Do you still love me the way that you saw me before? And having been able to work through those things in our relationship not only helped us to grow stronger, but now it gives me an opportunity to take a step back and think about it on her end. I don't know what that must have felt like for her to think in the back of her mind, always wondering like, how do I measure up? I don't look like that, or I don't think like that, or and so it has deeper ramifications in a relationship that I hope that people take to note and understand. And because it is that way, if you don't talk, right, with certain filters, right, we need to be careful with that. But if we don't share with our children about our past, it may not just be that. It may be drugs or alcohol. It may be verbal abuse. It may be abandonment. Whatever the issue may be, if we're not sharing that with our children to let them know that there's more to life and to be aware of these things, to be okay with making, I guess, having deep conversations and sharing about that stuff, we need to create those avenues of communication. If we don't do that, then we run the risk of allowing our children to follow the same unhealthy path. And generally speaking, when it comes to generation, we're usually inheriting certain things and passing down certain things. So chances are, if we're not careful, our children will suffer mentally and emotionally and potentially physically some of the things that we did if we just try to sweep those things under the rug like they never happened. If you're generally somebody that struggles with depression, it's very possible that your children will also struggle with depression. So it doesn't mean to be afraid and panic and wrap them in bubble wrap and lock them in the closet. No, it means that we need to be more purposeful.
We need to take action.
Yes, more intentional about taking action when they don't feel well. Yeah. Hey, how's it going? Just check in with them. Are you feeling like this? Well, let me tell you a story about how I felt and how I used to deal with it when I was a kid. And you could either lead them down a path and share with them the hurt and the heartache and how you overcame, or you could share with them what helped you to overcome that obstacle. And I just really think that we don't spend enough time and give enough attention to those kinds of things, because we can give them a tablet, we can give them video games, we can let them plug in their earphones, their earbuds, and put on their headset and go away to a different world. And we're in the same house, but we are so far apart.
Yeah. And one of the things that he was saying about, if we're not the ones that are having the conversations with them, I just want you to know that these conversations exist, whether you have them with them or not. So now they're not asking you, but they're asking another 13-year-old. They're asking another 16-year-old. They're asking kids that are their age for the advice that you should be giving them, or the advice that they could have heard from you. It's funny because my 16-year-old Brandon, everybody calls him for counseling advice, like everybody, for relationship advice, for like all kind of advice. And why is that? Because I sit there and I talk his ear off. When we're in the car, I just tell him stories about, this when I was younger, and stories about situations. And why do I do that? Because I feel like even if he's just on his phone, or even if he's just like, okay, mom, okay, he's listening. Yeah. He's listening, and he is taking that. And I notice, because later on when he tells me like, oh, this is what I told my friend, it's the conversations that we had in the car. It's the conversations that we sat and we talked while I was cooking dinner. So these conversations, even though you think like they don't want to hear this stuff, like they do want to hear these things.
They need to hear it.
They have to hear these things in order for you to take them down the right path. So when they're older, you can have peace in your heart.
Yep.
You have to know that. And it's not impossible, even if you have a teenager, even if they're older and you're like, okay, now I want to make a change. Now I want to do things. It's never too late. Amen. It's never too late. And the part where it says the rod and rebuke give wisdom, a lot of the times if you think about how do you and I learn? Like how, right? Like it's through pain.
Through people or through pain. Yep.
So I want to just give you this advice. It's not about hurting your kid, but it's about correcting your kid. If your kid does something that they're not supposed to do, and you say like, okay, there has to be consequences. That's where I want to get at. There has to be consequences.
Yes.
And these things, that stuff that we're talking about, let it be normal and let it have consequences. And that's okay. You know, like there was a story where one time we caught one of our kids sneaking out, and he like thought like, oh my God, I'm gonna like, oh my God, I'm gonna get in so much in trouble. So we're like, it happens. Kids sneak out. So we sat with him. We showed him the proof that he got caught. He was sneaking out. And we just said, you lost your privileges for so many weeks or months. I don't even remember.
Yeah.
But we're like, these are the reasons why you are going to have consequences. One, because this could have happened. This could have happened. This could have happened. This could have happened. Second, because we gave you our trust and you took advantage of that. And it's not okay to take advantage of people. 3, whatever. 4, whatever. Okay, so do you want to say anything? He's just like, well, yeah. Like, he was surprised that we were not like just crazy, like having a fit.
Yeah.
And that we were just talking to him like normal human being, and I think he appreciated that. No, I don't think he appreciated that. And he took it because we were calm about it, because we were able to talk, and because the consequences came because not so much because he did something wrong, but just because we need to help him to understand that with every choice that he makes, there's good consequences and bad consequences. And we're trying to teach him that so that way when he gets older, his life can be better because he's going to make smarter choices. And if we tell them that, like, this is the reason why you're in trouble, because I'm trying to teach you, not because I'm mad at you, not because, I want to punish you, but just because I love you and I want to make sure that you have a great future. And this is the consequence that this choice has. When you're able to talk about it in that way and you're able to calm down, like, it makes a world of a difference. You have no idea.
Yeah. Just be careful too. Like, I get it, right? And people, please don't read this verse and be like, okay, the rod is coming. Like, it's coming down. No, the rod does not mean you beat your child.
No,
please it does not mean that. Yeah,
you're in big trouble.
You go and you find the biggest switch you can find and just start smacking them around with it, right? That's not what that means, okay? But your level of correction and rebuke needs to be, I guess, in proportion to what your child is doing, okay? And the age in which they're doing it. Okay, so we couldn't have that conversation if he was 2 years old, right? No. It wouldn't make sense, okay? So you need to think about those things and do your best, mom and dad, to treat your children the way they need to be treated and love your children the way they need to be loved. Mm. Because the mistake that we make, one, is that we usually punish out of anger.
Yes.
We get scared or we get angry, we get frustrated, and we hit, we punish. And that is not what we want to do. That's not what we're talking about. We are talking about correction. And with correction always comes love.
Yes.
Without that, it is punishment, and it generally will not stick.
And its punishment is just to feed your anger, to just get it out of frustration.
It becomes an outlet. And then what that does to your children is it causes them to develop grudge and resentment. And that's not what we want. We want love and correction. Yes. Okay. So that's an important distinction to make. Also, your children, you can't treat them all the same. Okay. You can't do that. You know, in our case, especially, we have a blended family. It is so different. The dynamics are so different. Yes. You know, our oldest son, Gavin, okay, he's my son from a previous marriage. And so she had to be very wise in the way that she encountered him, and super patient. Like,
I should have gotten an award, guys.
Yeah, for real. Definitely deserve an award. And so, you know, and his upbringing was much different because I was a different person. You know, I remember when he was young, I want to say he was probably 5, 6. I was partying the night before and I was super hungover, and I woke up and he was gone. And so I kind of like freaked out, looking around. Then I really freaked out because he was not in the apartment. And so I just bolted out the door, and I found him like 5-10 minutes later, and he was at the park, you know, that was down the way from our apartment, having a good old time. He was playing with some kids, and he was just like, "Hey, Dad, I'm playing at the park," you know, like, and he was all happy, and I was so freaked out. I got so angry, but I was scared, and I just felt guilty because how could I get mad at him for me being an irresponsible parent? Oh. And so that's the difference. And so now, as he was growing up, he's seen me angry. He's seen me be irrational, and that wasn't gonna work because all that did was create space and distance in our relationship. Yeah. So it wouldn't have benefited me to, as he grew up, to just lose my mind and smack him around. And that's not what he needs. He needed love and affection and correction.
A lot of it.
And so that's how I was able to get through to him the most. You know, with Brandon, he's my stepson. So one of the things that helps me relate to him is that I'm a stepson. And so on a certain level, I can understand where he comes from. And because his level of I guess his intellect is a lot different too. And you could tell in the way that he cares about his studies and in the way that he behaves. You know, so I had to talk to him in a different way. Like, I had to use words that I wouldn't use with my other kids. And I had to say it in a way that actually helped him to engage in a conversation because he just thought so differently. Yeah. So I had to meet him where he was. And me being a stepchild myself helped me to connect with him in that way. Yeah. And so our youngest son, Aiden, he just has a different heart, you know, than the other kids. And if I don't confront him or talk to him, he'll just be like, "I'm good, Dad. Okay, Dad."
Literally every day, Dad. All day long.
"I understand, Dad.
I'll make it better." And
that's it. And you're just like, "Well, alrighty then. I'm glad we had this talk." And it was like 4 words, you know? And so I have to get involved with him. And if I let him keep that distance, he's happy to keep it and do he has his own routine. He has his own way of doing things. He's totally content and he won't say anything. You know, with Lily, she demands my attention. And it's like, if she needs me or wants me to see something, even if I've seen it 10 times, she will come and get me and interrupt whatever it is that I'm doing, saying, "Can I show you something? I got to show you something. You got to see this. Did you see it? You got to see it again. Wasn't that funny? One more time." You know, and I'm just like, okay, this is it. You know, I can't wait. And so I have to be able to meet them where they're at, treat them differently the way they want to be and need to be treated and loved.
That's huge.
When you build those relationships and think of it like a bank account. Mm-hmm. Every time you're loving them, not just during the correction part, but loving them all the moments in between.
Yeah, the way they need it.
Exactly. You're showing them love and affection. You're reading them bedtime stories. You're praying with them at night. You're hugging them. You're kissing them. You know, they're saying thank you when you feed them. You're saying you're welcome. And you're having these moments together And when it's time to correct them, they take it. And you're depositing all this love, and when it's time to cash out just a little bit, because you have to correct them, you have to rebuke them, you have to have consequences to their actions, and you make that withdrawal of the love, they accept it because there's still currency there to live and draw off of. But when they have nothing in the bank, there's nothing in their love tank, and you're just beating them, correcting them, yelling at them, talking down to them, treating them like they're calling them lazy, calling them worthless, and there's nothing to withdraw.
Guys, they're empty.
They're just empty, beaten down, worn out, filled with grudge, bitterness, regret. Just they will develop an unhealthy perception of who you are as a mother or a father. They will grow up with that. It will impact them. And just think about some of the things that have marked you. You know, like we were watching Jumanji the other day, because I've been dying to watch this movie for like 2 months. The original Jumanji.
We did. We finally rented it and we watched it.
And there was a line in there where, you know, Robin Williams plays this character where he's sucked into this game, and he's gone for 26 years. Yeah. And he got sucked in when he was a young kid, and he comes out 26 years later as an adult, and he's just harping and yelling at this kid, and he realizes that he's just verbally beating this kid down. Yeah. And he stops and he says, hey, I'm sorry. And he hugs him and he squeezes him, and he's just like, 26 years in the deepest, darkest jungle, and I still became my father. Man, that's deep. Yeah. You know, so we could have resented our parents as much as we wanted to. You could have said, I'm never going to be like you. But and then you grew up. And what are you like now? So we have to be intentional. Yeah. We have to be purposeful. We have to love on purpose, right? Make that your goal. That's my advice for you in this session. Love on purpose.
Yeah, you know, one of the things that he was saying about just becoming like our parents. I remember when we first got married, I don't know if you guys were watching when I was talking about just being so negative. And because I was home with all the kids, it was frustrating. It was 4 of them immediately. And I remember just having this tone of voice, like everything was this tone of voice, always. It didn't matter what I said. If it was a nice thing, I said it in this tone of voice.
But there's, for those of you that can't see, you can't see her pretty face, but along with the tone, let me just add in there, along with the tone, there's this eyebrow right here. This eyebrow actually comes above her hairline.
Get out of here.
And it's like this. When she
no, but he's for real though.
See it? Did you see it just a little bit? So imagine that like way up here.
So, and I mean, here I am, this small little person, but just with the tone of voice that I had, and just how like mean, I guess I would sound, like it was intimidating for anybody, you know, and that's what caused most of our fights.
Yeah, I think all moms have that superpower.
Yeah, you know, so I think that one of the biggest things that I really prayed about was that I really told God, like, I don't want that. I don't want to talk to my kids this way. You know, like I remember one of the things that my mom and I always talk about it. I told her, like, one of the things that I remember that she would say to me is she would always ask me to find her shoes under her bed when we had to go to church. And I couldn't find them. And she would get so frustrated with me, and she'd be like, oh my God, in Spanish, like, no sirves para nada, Vanessa. Meaning like, you're worthless, Vanessa. Like, you know, you're good for nothing. And I remember I used to think about that all the time, and I'd be like, dang, like that's who I really am. Like I'm no good. So here you are, you know, you call your kids these names and you don't think about it, and you're just like harping on them and talking to them in this voice and just this demeanor. You're constantly just kind of smashing their spirits, like you really are, you know. And even if I needed something, I'm just like, go get that from me over there. I need that right now. It's like, did I really have to ask it for that way? Like, can I just say, you know what, love, I need that over there. Can you hand it to me, please? Like, what's the difference? Yeah. You know, like, actually, it's a big difference. Yep. And we have that custom to talk that way, not only to our kids, but to our husbands, especially, just everybody around, because we're grouchy or we're frustrated. You know, so one of the things that I did is I give everybody nicknames. I said babe, I said love, I said munchkin, I said, I called Lily Lilykins or Lilybug. One of the best things that I call her is Sweet Pea. She's like, I love when you call me Sweet Pea. But I learned that if I did that, you can't say like, hey, love, give me that over there. Like, you're not going to say that like that. It doesn't sound right.
That's true.
So that's what I had to do to myself. I literally had to train myself to speak differently. And it helped. I really noticed that it really did help. So if you're struggling, man, we're like all over the place today, but hey, maybe you guys needed this. So, if you need to be able to just change the way that you're parenting, change the way that you're involved with your kids, change the way that you speak to your kids, just be aware. As you're listening to this, be aware where you're at as a parent. We were praying right before we started. And as I was praying, I was just telling God, like, your kids, my kids, they're our future. Do you see all these knuckleheads, everybody fighting and being against each other and being mean to each other and harassing each other and just thinking that, like everybody's better than everybody. Like, instead of just everybody loving each other and respecting each other, like that comes from who we are as people. So what you're teaching your kids right now, they're our future.
Amen to that.
They are our future. So whatever you instill in them, whether it's hospitality, whether it's love, whether it's grace, whether it's mercy, whether it's compassion, yes, they can clean up and do their chores really good. But if you're not teaching them to be compassionate and be loving and be great, they're just going to be one of those, goody two-shoes out there that just thinks they're better than somebody else. And that's it, with good traits, but no heart. Our kids need to have heart. And it starts by you, by me, by us.
Yeah, I think one of the hardest lessons for a parent to learn is the realization that we can talk their heads off and tell them what to do, but our actions will always speak louder than words.
Yes.
So mom and dad, whoever's listening to this, I don't doubt that you love your children.
No.
It's just that in the way that you express that, do your kids know just how much you love them, just how proud you are of them, just how much you care for them. And, for the dads and that are working hard every day, you're a rock star. You don't have to be told. The sacrifice is just in you because that's what has to be done. Yeah. You don't let your emotions get involved. You take care of business. You handle it. You do what needs to be done. I respect that. I get it. I'm there, right there with you. And your wife might even understand that. But in the big scheme of things, do your kids, are they able to connect that sacrifice with love? Do you tell them that you love them? Do you hold them? Do you kiss them? Do you sit with them and just listen to their day? And do you tell them that you miss them throughout the day? Those kinds of things. And mom, you don't have to be told that you're amazing. Like you sacrifice so much. You're running around like up and down like a chicken with your head cut off. You're doing everything that you possibly can. You're giving till you got nothing left, and then you give some more. I get it. In the midst of the madness, in the midst of all that you do, can you just take a breath and tell your kids thank you? Tell your kids you love them. Tell your kids how much they mean to you, and don't look at them and get upset at your husband because he did that to you. Or husbands, don't get upset or frustrated with your kids and get mad at your wife, that the situation is the way it is. Like, you guys together can overcome anything. Yeah. You put God in the middle, sky's the limit. Yeah. You put God in the center of your family, you're going to accomplish everything that you set out to accomplish and then some. You take that wisdom that comes from God, you instill it in your children, and they will reach heights that you only dreamed of for yourself. Yes. And I think that's what we all want. We all want better for our kids. We all want better for our children so that they could be financially stable or successful in their career or be able to travel or do things that we just only dreamed of being able to accomplish. We want that for our kids. That happens at home. Believe it or not, the success that they will have in life has a lot less to do with their education and more to do with what you teach them while you have them at home. Believe that. Love on them.
Yes.
Teach them. I'm going to read this one more time, and then I'll be done talking. Then you can finish off, Vanessa. I get tired of talking. I'm tired of hearing myself, I should say. Proverbs 29:15-17. The rod and rebuke give wisdom, but a child left to himself brings shame to his mother. When the wicked are multiplied, transgression increases, but the righteous will see their fall. Correct your son, and he will give you rest. Yes, he will give delight to your soul. Imagine the peace that comes when you know you've done your best. Yeah. Your children leave the house, and you don't have to worry about if they're doing okay or not, because you know they're doing well. Yeah. They have principles. They have morals. And I'll tell you what, somebody's going to correct them. It's either going to be you at home or it's going to be the system. And I've been working in the prison for 14 years. I see it every day. You know, people that are detached from their parents, can't see their families anymore. And they've changed the name to the Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation. The state is doing their best to put people in prison and give them tools to rehabilitate, to hopefully become functioning, contributing members of society. But we could avoid all that heartache if you just start now and teach them at home.
That's it, guys. That's all we got. All right, guys. We love you guys. Let us know. Let us know about this, just this episode, especially about this episode. If you're listening to it, please chime in and let us know where you're listening to from. We would love to hear from you. And also, if you have more just questions about parenting or blended families, let us know. Send us a message, through Instagram, Facebook. You can just anywhere. We would love to help. We would love to continue to do this together with you guys, because you matter. Your kids matter. Your family matters. Amen.
Let's pray. Lord, thank you for just all the things that you've done in our lives to help us to get to this place where we are right now.
Yes, thank you.
Lord, I know that the bad was not pleasurable, but I thank you that we're able to look back and find the lesson to be able to grow, to be stronger as a person and as a relationship. Lord, thank you for what we've been through. If that means that we can teach our children what not to do and help them avoid some of the heartache that we've been through. Lord, I pray for those that are listening that they would just be bold and brave to talk to their children and open up that communication and share about where they've been. And hopefully through their sharing, it will open up an opportunity for their children to share with them about maybe some of the struggles that they've been having, so that there can be a deeper relationship based on love and affection, not on judgment, not on verbal abuse or not on yelling, but a genuine father-daughter, a genuine father-son, a genuine mother and son, mother and daughter relationship that can be built upon to help them grow in the way that you would have them grow. Lord, help them to build the character that we would desire for them to have. Help us to be engaged and to love on purpose. Thank you for everybody listening. Thank you for everything that we have. Thank you for each one, Lord, that will take this advice, apply it to their life so that they could see a blessing in their children and in their relationship. Lord, we love you. We thank you. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. All right, guys. We'll see you next time.
Bye, guys.